another video, and today we're going to be talking about going back to work after a loss. Now, the Labor Workforce Participation states that 70% of mothers have to go back to work after delivery, and a lot of times the typical leave that's available to mothers is a maximum of 3 months, and that also depends on the job that you have and the leave that you accumulate. So a lot of times the biggest question for mothers is, are you ready to go back to work?
Big question. So this was, I believe, my last miscarriage that I had after my daughter. She was, I can't remember her age, but it was sometime after I had my daughter, quite some time. And I was actually at work when I had a miscarriage. I was 6 weeks, and leading up within that day, I felt my body was off. Most women, I think we have that feeling where we know ourselves enough to say, okay, something's off. So long story short, I started seeing spotting, and then I was back and forth in my job, at my desk, back to my supervisor, on the phone with my doctor, trying to let him know what was going on. And ultimately, he let me know, okay, if you think you are having a miscarriage, then we will, just kind of monitor it, and you may end up having to go to the emergency room and, seek help for that. If not, the other option that he talked to me about, because he wasn't sure if I was having a miscarriage or not, he said that the next following week I don't know if he said DNC or something like that, but it was something that included a procedure or something like that. I'm not sure. Right. So basically, of course, I'm at work. I'm running to my supervisor. I'm like, okay, yeah, I know what this is. I'm having a miscarriage. So I let her know that I was having a miscarriage, and I basically drove myself to the hospital. And from there, it just kind of spiraled down. You guys know what a miscarriage is, so I pretty much knew. And it was pretty bad. It was very gruesome, to say the least. So that was a really crazy experience to be at work and be going through a miscarriage.
So I guess time off, like you mentioned, was important. If your job has the flexibility, like if you know you're having a miscarriage or your doctor confirms that something is wrong and you need to take time off, having the option to either take medical leave, or work from home is important if you have that option, because taking leave is not only important for your body but also for your mental health, just to get yourself situated,
right,
and kind of also for your body staying off your feet and making sure you don't hemorrhage and all that stuff.
Right.
But in terms of working from home, if you have that option, maybe a couple days a week, it would also be less stressful. You kind of be in the comfort of your home and you'd still be able to get your work done from a distance. You could still get everything you need to get done. But another important point when you're going through something like this is to have an open line of communication with your supervisor or HR.
Extremely.
Whoever is kind of in your corner. Because, not saying that they need to know everything, but it's important that you do update them so they kind of won't just think you're slacking or you're making excuses. If you are able to be open with them on what you're going through. And there's also laws that protect your job and protect you going through a pregnancy or going through a loss. So those are good things to research whenever you're going through something like that. But just having someone in your corner and keeping them updated with the relevant information is important.
Right. Like, Lanita, I know when you went through your loss last year, I know that Emmanuel was hard for you. Your second loss was even harder because it was a second loss.
Right.
And I know that us being as wonderful friends that we are, was able to be there for you at work, which a lot of people don't have. A lot of people don't have those important relationships or actual friends that they can call friends, because we know there's levels to that as well.
Yeah.
But having people that you can say, this is my friend, outside of work, and not just we're coworkers, made a difference in that support. Because of course people have their moments where you don't know when you're going to have a breakdown. And I remember specifically one day you didn't even make it in the building and you were like having a complete breakdown.
Yeah, and of course that happens. I know one day, because okay, so my thing is, I guess, avoidance. Try not to overshare, not to burden people with my issues. So at the point when y'all approached me, I didn't even want to tell, like, even though I know you guys had been through it, I didn't want to tell you because I didn't know how much of my business to share, number one. Number two, I just didn't want to trigger anything for you guys or kind of bring your mood down. So, but of course y'all forced me to come out of my shell, which in turn was the best thing that ever happened. But just knowing that there is somebody there who understands. There are several people who I work with, or who I've met since my losses, that have gone through it, and of course nobody talks about it. But I thank you guys for being there for me, because it made me feel less alone. So those days when I'm sitting in the office with my door closed and I got my headphones on and I'm crying, like, y'all understood. Everyone else would probably look at me like I'm crazy, but just having someone who gets it that made all the difference.
And it makes a difference, because I know Renee sees it as well. The changes in Lanita from when we first saw her going through all of those losses to now, it's been such an improvement. And from my understanding, I think it's you actually communicating about it and being able to speak about it and help other people and feel passionate about what you've been through, and not turn it into this sob story, this woe is me, I'm never going to get through this, but turn it into a moment where you can be an inspiration for other women. And it's so empowering.
There were days I couldn't even speak. I couldn't do nothing but cry. Like,
it was
I couldn't do nothing but grab tissues. It was like, and it's hard for me being in this position as a supervisor, because no matter what's going on in my mind or whatever, I still have to be able to function, not only for myself, but for the other people that I have under me.
And I think that's an important part of it, is that the position that you play. Now, as case managers and supervisors and social workers, we have the obligation to deal with other people and to manage other people's lives. And so when you do have to deal with someone else or multiple other people, it makes you have to put yourself on the back burner. And I think that's what makes it last longer.
And for me, at one point, it was like, how can I deal with all these cases and all these phone calls I'm getting? I can't even deal with myself. So it was hard. It was even harder for me because I couldn't manage myself. So I can't manage a case, like, but eventually, like I said, talking through it, having you guys there as a support system helped me, like, little by little. I kind of got back to at least a place where I felt comfortable enough to interact with other people.
And I think agency culture plays a part too, because I know where we worked, everybody knows everybody's business, and it's hard to hide things when you see people so many hours out of the day, and it's an open space, office doors are open, it's not much that you can hide, and once a couple people know, everybody's gonna know.
Everybody knows.
And so I think going back to work after a loss, another question is, how much is too much? How much do I tell? How much do I share? And I know for me, I felt empowered when I was able to say those words. I had a loss, but I'm okay. Like, I remember having talked to our fiscal director, and when she was processing my leave, she was like, why were you out so much? Like, what happened? And I was like, oh, well, you know, I experienced a loss, but I'm okay. And her response was worse than my statement, because she was like, oh my gosh, are you okay? And I'm like, no, I'm okay. Like, I've had my time to process, and I've grieved, and I've appropriately went through the steps and all of that, but some people don't get that time. And so the culture of your agency and knowing who to talk to, who not to talk to, who to avoid, because we know there's people to avoid
Yeah,
at work.
Yeah.
So all of those things play a big part.
Yeah, that's how I kind of had the same feeling of empowerment when I had my loss. Now, I know these two are going to get on me, but because they already know what I went through, but I literally had the miscarriage while I was at work, and then I literally went back to work like 3 or 4 days later. So, which everybody got on me, like, yeah, I did it.
But don't worry,
I mean,
you're not the only one, because that one got on me when I was having my loss, because I was at work going through it. Mine took a week to get through, and every morning that I showed up to work, Lanita was yelling at me like, "Go home."
Yeah. And I know for myself, when I went through my second loss, I took a couple days off after finding out, but I hadn't actually passed anything yet, so I was waiting for it to happen on its own. It didn't, so then I went home. I took off work because I think I showed up on a Wednesday, and I was waiting for it to happen on its own. I was there for a couple hours, and I was just in my own head. I was like, I can't, like, it could happen at any minute. I don't want to be here,
Right?
and I don't want to have to, deal with people while I'm going through this.
Yeah, exactly.
So I went home. Because the doctor only gave me a 2-day release, so I took my own leave and kind of went home and let things happen. And I took about 4 days just to make sure that I was feeling okay, before I came back to work, because I didn't want to have to go through it at work. I know that would have been, for me, that would have been extra hard, having to not only worry about my body, worry about my mental health, and also have to work. I know I couldn't handle it. So I chose to take as much time off as I could. But like I said, everyone handles things differently. I know you like to be more active. You kind of have to keep your mind busy.
At all
I like
times.
to reflect. So
if I sit there and reflect, I'm gonna be crying 24/7. The tears do not stop, and it gets to a point where it's like, okay, when do I start the process of moving on? Like, I know, like Mary said previously, talking about it makes it better for me.
Yeah.
And so when I went back to work, even though I didn't have a long time taking off, because I just felt like if I sit at home, it's gonna make it worse. Going back to work, answering the questions of where have you been, you kind of have to get creative in your answers, because there's certain people that I was just like, I don't
want to really tell them.
I don't like you that much to tell you my business. So, I mean, that's just being real. You don't like everybody enough to tell them what you really feel.
But there's ways, for example, you could be as vague as you need to. Like, I was handling a family matter or a personal issue. You don't have to say whatever, like, you only share what you're comfortable sharing.
Right, and that's all a part of being creative in your answers to people. So, we know and we understand that not all mothers have the capability of taking off time from work. We know that people don't get 3 months of leave, maternity leave from jobs. And we understand people have to do what you have to do, and we get that. And a lot of times, support all comes down to support, the support that you have. Know your job. If you feel like you want to start trying to get pregnant, ask for resources or what is available to me, or, if this happens, what can I get? What resources are out there for this, and that? Just make sure that you cover all your bases so you can be prepared for what's to come. I know a lot of times some mothers have, really bad morning sickness where they have to take off throughout their pregnancy, and that causes their leave to change at the end.
Yeah.
And so those are things that you kind of have to prepare for. At the end of the day, the most important thing is knowing when you're ready to go back to work. No matter how many times somebody else may pressure you, no matter if you have to go to work and go back home or flex your time or do whatever, make sure that you are ready. And if you're not, find help, talk to somebody, link with friends. There's so many resources. You can look at your local hospitals, doulas, different things like that to be able to help you get through this process. All right, so we want to know, what were your experiences returning back to work? How did you feel? When did you go back? And if you went back? My working from home moms, shout you out as well. Tell us your stories down below in the comments, and we will see you next time.
Thanks for watching our video.
Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.
Follow us on all our social media. The links are down below in the description box.